dead. Goodness gracious. This will be a day that will go down in state history. And all you can do is pray for those people.
Wednesday, April 27th, 2011, 5 o'clock p.m., Central Alabama. The people of Tuscaloosa and Northport are seeking shelter from a violent tornado on the ground. Many intense tornadoes had already touched down that afternoon, with many losing their lives. The ABC 3340 crew is watching their Skycam as a multiple vortex violent tornado is tearing through the southwest side of town. Widespread destruction would then ensue, with 53 losing their lives in the city of Tuscaloosa. Communities northeast of the city, like Concord, Pleasant Grove, and McDonald's Chapel, would also be devastated, with many more losing their lives. This is part 2 of a series about the 2011 Super Outbreak, and today we'll be discussing the Tuscaloosa-Birmingham tornado, one of the most well-known tornadoes from the outbreak. Over an 80-mile path, 64 would lose their lives, and over 1,500 more would be injured. We'll review the setup from part 1, the tornado, and the impacts. We'll also take a look at how the towns have recovered and the public response. To recap from last time, the setup on April 27th was seen as the most conducive for violent tornadoes ever. To get an idea of what I'm talking about, here's an atmospheric sounding taken at 1 o'clock p.m. in central Alabama. It shows the loaded gun skew-T, as a capping inversion is followed by extreme instability and moisture. Deep low-level lapse rates are present, indicating an unstable atmosphere. The capping inversion would keep storms at bay until the conditions were just right. Once the cap eroded, storms would explode, and given the extremely high wind shear levels, these intense storms would rotate and produce strong, long-tracking tornadoes, especially given their discrete nature. The SPC would issue a high risk that was driven by a 45% hatched risk for tornadoes. Particularly dangerous situation Tornado Watch 235 was issued, indicating a very dangerous day ahead. By 5 o'clock p.m., many other violent tornadoes had already touched down. The aforementioned Hackleburg EF5 had already touched down, as well as the Smithville and Kemper County tornadoes in Mississippi. Other violent tornadoes, such as the Coleman and Cordova tornadoes, had also devastated many areas across central Alabama. A supercell entering western Alabama was rotating and was attempting to put down another tornado. The environment ahead of the cell was primed, with very high levels of low-level storm relative helicity, and at 4:43, it produced yet another violent tornado. The tornado that would devastate much of Tuscaloosa and Jefferson counties initially touched down in Greene County and began tracking northeast. The tornado remained weak for some time, but as it moved closer to the city of Tuscaloosa, it slowly began to strengthen. The ABC 3340 Skycam system was watching the tornado as it took on a very apparent multiple vortex structure as it danced on the southwest side of the city. The National Weather Service in Birmingham issued a tornado emergency for Tuscaloosa and the surrounding areas, seeing the extreme danger of the situation. The tornado, now at EF4 intensity, entered the heart of Tuscaloosa. It violently damaged or completely destroyed many buildings in town. Footage of the now wedged tornado shows debris being tossed around like toys. Homes, businesses, apartment complexes, and many other structures would succumb to the tornado's wrath, as over 5,000 structures would be demolished. One of the areas that was hardest hit was Alberta City, a large neighborhood in Tuscaloosa. 65% of the structures in the neighborhood were destroyed as the tornado roared through. Paige Rawls, a University of Alabama student, recalls receiving many calls from her family throughout the day. She thought nothing of it until she saw the wedge violent tornado on TV. She and her roommates suddenly realized the severity of the situation as they took shelter in an interior room. As the house around them was being ripped away, crashes of glass and other objects in the house were heard. While their home was destroyed, they miraculously survived the tornado. The Rosedale Court apartment complex would be leveled by the tornado, demolishing the complex completely. By the time the tornado had left Tuscaloosa, 53 had lost their lives and hundreds more were injured. The tornado wasn't done there, however. As it continued northeast, it continued to intensify. A railroad trestle northeast of the city would be collapsed and completely destroyed by the winds of the tornado. The debris from the 75,000-pound bridge would be tossed over 100 feet up a hill. It is arguable that at this point, the tornado was at EF5 intensity. Homes would continue to be destroyed by the violent tornado, and trees would be extensively debarked. The tornado continued northeast, gradually weakening albeit very slightly, and entered Jefferson County at EF3 intensity. The first center of population in the path was Concord. Homes in the small community would be violently impacted as many were leveled. 6 would tragically lose their lives before the tornado would leave the town. Just northeast was Pleasant Grove, another small community. The scenes from Concord and Pleasant Grove were nearly identical, as complete destruction was observed from all around the community. A small row of homes along 8th Street would all be destroyed at EF4 intensity. The Greer family residence on 12th Street would be demolished, with 7 people taking shelter inside. Carrie Lowe would tragically lose her life while taking shelter in the basement. From there, the tornado began to slowly weaken as it inched closer to downtown Birmingham. The south side of McDonald's Chapel would be struck at EF2 intensity. The tornado was visible on cameras in the city of Birmingham as the massive wedge was slowly approaching. Pratt City, a large northern suburb of Birmingham, would be struck at EF2 intensity, as many structures received significant damage, including a large metal building that would be collapsed. The tornado would continue to weaken, and finally, after tracking for over 80 miles, the tornado lifted north of Birmingham. But the damage was already done. By the end of it all, 64 would lose their lives, over 1,500 would be injured, and $2.4 billion of damage would be done, making it the costliest tornado in the United States at that time. That record would stand for less than a month and would be surpassed by the Joplin tornado. Communities in Tuscaloosa and Jefferson counties would be devastated, and thousands of structures would be demolished. Communities in and around Tuscaloosa came together to help Tuscaloosa recover. Tuscaloosa has been rebuilding since, and the residents have shown resilience amidst tragedy. Unfortunately, many of the small communities impacted didn't receive much attention or aid, which is sadly often the case for smaller, more unknown communities. This was part 2 of a series about the 2011 Super Outbreak. If you haven't seen the last part about the Hackleburg EF5, I'd appreciate you taking a look. Stay tuned for the other parts to come. Before I end this video, I would like to thank you all for watching. This took a lot of time and work, so I appreciate you watching until the end. If you at all found this enjoyable or informative, please consider subscribing, as it would help me out a lot. Also, I have linked down in the description a lot of sources that have a lot of good information on the tornado if you would like to learn more. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later on MediaCube.